Nice thoughts, readers. Yeah, this caption told us more information about tagging sharks and how it's harmless, but it helps them to study them. And this caption was really helpful because it showed us how they use a propeller to measure how fast the sharks swim. So it gave us an example of a tool that the scientists use when studying sharks. Pretty neat. All right, second grade, let's play a little warm-up game to help us remember what reasons do. Remember, reasons can explain why the author thinks or feels that way. It can explain how something happens or steps in a process that support the point. It can describe more by saying what it looks like, feels like, sounds like, shapes and numbers and sizes. Or it can give an example. It can show an example of what they're talking about. We're going to look back at some of the details from the book, from a text that we just read. The author is making the point that sharks are in danger and scientists need to help. Let's take a look at these details and see if they are reasons that explain why, explain how, describe more, or give examples. I want you to touch the point part of the screen that shows what you think that reason is doing. You could even do your gestures to help you. All right. Here's the first detail. Every year, around 100 million sharks are killed. Why, how, describing, or giving an example. Ready? Point to your screen. 1, 2, 3, point. Describing more. The reason this is describing more is because it's giving a number. That's our clue. It's describing how many sharks are killed, and that shows us that sharks are in danger. Let's look at the next one. To help find answers, scientists clip sonic tags to shark fins. Why? Is it explaining how they do something? Is it describing? Or is it giving an example? Ready? Point to the part on your screen. 1, 2, 3, point. Did you point to explain how? How do scientists help? Well, they clip sonic tags to shark fins. Some of you might have said that was giving an example, and that was an okay thought too, because that isn't one example of how they are helping, but really they're explaining how they help. They clip sonic tags to shark fins. Let's take a look at another one. If more sharks die than are born each year, they will become extinct. Is that why, how, describing more, or giving an example? Ready? 1, 2, 3, point. It's explaining why. Why are sharks in danger? Because they will become extinct if more are born, or if more die each year than are born. Why do they become extinct? Because more die than are born each year. Let's do one more. Shark fin soup is popular in many countries in Asia. So remember where this was at in the book. It was in that bottom section where it said that people kill them to make products, and it showed us the different products that were down there. What were those products doing? Explaining why, explaining how, describing, so using describing words, or giving an example. Ready? Point to your screen. 1, 2, 3, point. Giving an example. Shark fin soup is an example of one way that sharks are in danger from being killed to make products. How'd you do? The tricky thing about this is that sometimes reasons can do more than one thing. It can explain why and explain how, or it can describe while it's explaining how. The important thing is that you're thinking about these reasons and thinking about how they support the point the author is making. I want you to think back to one of the ways that we can keep track of our thoughts and really think about what reasons do. Here is a great example. One second grader made this page and shared it with me when we were reading about dogs being great helpers. Remember how we did this work? We wrote the point at the top that dogs were great helpers, and then we listed the reasons the author gave that proved that dogs were helpers, so things that supported the idea of them being great helpers. Then this second grader went back and thought, what does this reason do? The second grader said, well, The reason said it helps people with disabilities. That explained how dogs were great helpers because they help people with disabilities. And this second grader coded it with an H. Then they read this one, hearing dogs help people who can't hear well. Does that explain why they're great helpers? Explain how they're great helpers? Describe more or give an example of great helping? Well, this second grader said that gives an example of a type of dog that's a great helper. Hearing dogs are one example of being a great helper, so they coded it with an E. Touch their owners with their noses. The second grader that did this went back into the text and thought, what was that reason doing? And they decided it was explaining how. How does the hearing dog help? Well, it touches the owner with their noses to show them that there was a sound. So they coded it with an H. Then they read this reason again. Guide dogs help people who can't see well. And they thought, does this explain why dogs are great helpers? Explain how? Describe more or give an example. And this second grader said, this is another example, another type of dog that's a great helper. So they coded it with an E because it gave an example. And then they went to their final reason and said, follow directions to help owners, and went back and found that part of the text and said, what did that reason do when it was talking about the following directions to help the owners? This second grader thought that explains how the guide dog helps, and so they coded it with an H. We can list the reasons and then think about each of those reasons and think, does this reason explain why the author feels that way? Explain how the point is being made, describe more, or give an example. And we use our codes to help us keep track of our thoughts. I want you to have a little bit of practice trying out this work. Here's an example of what we wrote yesterday. Remember, the point was Atka is a special wolf. And we said one of the reasons the author gave was that it was a stunning Arctic gray wolf. Let's look back in the text. A stunning Arctic gray wolf. He is white with long legs and green eyes. So let's think about the stunning Arctic gray wolf, white with long legs and green eyes. What does this reason do to support the idea that it's a special wolf? Does it explain why Atka is special? Explain how Atka shows that he is special? Does it describe more about Atka? Or does it give an example of something Atka can do? Head to the next Nearpod slide, and I want you to use the drawing tool, and I want you to code either W, H, D, or E next to this reason to show what this reason does. Head to the next slide.